All right, we're going to slog through the rest of the board meeting. They ended with the Lato presentation on Powell Boulevard, Division Boulevard redo, and, you know, I listened to it, and I don't see any benefit for this for any rider because it's 15% quicker, which means it's not quicker. Unless they could increase the travel time 100%, they're not making it quicker, so that doesn't count. So what good is this? What's the point of the project? I have no idea. It's not going to help any citizen. We know what's the point of the project. It's a capital project. That's the point of the project, is to keep capital projects going, and that's the point of the project. I mean, we can't stop that monster, but at least we need to understand it exists. This is what's happening around us. We can't do anything about it. They have control of that money. You know, they have this cash flow stream. It's the tax farm aspect. They have this money coming in, and it's committed to that particular group of people. So they're going to talk about it, I suppose, now, and maybe we'll be more illuminated. I don't see how it has any benefit to anybody, though. Oh, and before we go on to that, I want to point out they passed the tax grab. It's a tax grab, okay? It's what it is. You've seen no dissent in the media at all about that. There's been no contrary points of view. All the media is pretty much landmark transportation bill and lawmakers congressional. It's all been positive coverage of the tax, and the tax is huge. And if you divide the billions of dollars by the population of Oregon, you find out that tax is $1,400 and some change for every single resident. I mean, that's money out of citizens' pockets. All right, so the fact that Oregonians didn't get a vote on that speaks volumes. And it's a shame that the media is complicit with government here, but we already know this. I mean, this is one of the reasons that Donald Trump got in. I mean, I know Donald Trump is a buffoon and he's a clown. I know all that. But he has really enlightened people when it comes to the media. You can't deny that truth about Trump, okay? He did do that. He put all of this into motion, all of this media, and he's right about that. He was right about the fake media when it came to that campaign. And the proof is that he won, okay? So there's no need to discuss it further. He won when the media said it wasn't possible. Anyway, that's not, I don't know how to get onto that. The point I wanted to make also about this tax is that there's two different figures. The state said it was $70 million for Trimet, but Trimet says it's $40 million. So there's a $30 million discrepancy, and of course I believe that Trimet's lowballing. And no reporter will ask him, why does the state say this and you say that? There's nobody going to ask him. I'm not going to ask him, okay? Forget it. They're not going to answer me anyway. So just let it sit there. All I'm doing is bringing it up for the handful of people that actually care about TriMet. And I don't know why more people don't pay attention to this stuff, really. It's important. You know, I know why, because nobody really rides TriMet in this area. It's like 12% of community. It's not an important issue in people's minds. They don't think about it. Like, you know, I look at this every day, so I know it, but people don't think about TriMet in Portland at all. The general average person. They don't think about it at all. There's nothing to think about for them. And that's the way it is. That's how they get away with all this shit, because nobody's really paying attention to them.
How are things going along the Southwest Corridor project?
Things are going well. I don't want to get into too much detail, because frankly, I am not as deeply involved with it right now, given this and everything else that's going on.
I get asked a lot.
Why did he not want to answer anything about that? He really put the kibosh on that immediately. I don't know anything about the Southwest Corridor.
Kind of my area, and I'll tell them things are moving.
Right.
No pun intended.
Right. Design proceeds. Things are looking positive in terms of opportunities. It's, as you know, it's a challenging geography, and so it takes a lot of time to work through all the details.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to ask you a question about those freight trains in Southeast. Since I live in that area, I see that a lot.
Right.
The trains just sitting there. How have you worked that out?
Well, a couple of things. One is we looked at the data in terms of the actual time of impact and when that impact is likely to occur. And yeah, it's kind of spread all over the day, and we really think about it being like that. But when you look at it, the likelihood of actually impacting an individual bus is relatively low. We are also working actually at the tail end of the Orange Line project as a safety project to try and make some improvements to what's going on with the signaling and switching there that might help both the division project and the generalized closing of those intersections, especially up at 8th where we need to use it for the division project to cross.
I see. Okay,
Director Stovall?
very good.
Alan, thanks for the report. You mentioned early on in the project scope slide that 14 miles of enhanced service was long for a project like this. What's a typical distance?
A lot of the services that we see across the country are 6 to 10 miles. They really do average right around 8. This makes sense for our region because it is a single bus line and in many ways a coherent corridor from one end to the other. It just kind of points out that it's a challenge compared to some other projects around the country.
So then what types of challenges does that entail for the project?
One is cost, obviously. The longer it is, the more buses you need, the more stations you need, all of that. And the other is just it's a long and varied corridor with lots of different stakeholders along the way, and that's part of why we have dedicated staff to get to know everybody along.
The stakeholders, those are the people. He's referring to the people who are in the path of this project, and it's bad for them. They're screwed, okay? They were not asked about this, believe me. This project was announced, remember? It was announced. It was never discussed publicly. It was announced, this is what we're going to do, and the mainstream media, of course, did their thing, saying it was announced, and we're going to do this, so it manufactured consent immediately.
Along that alignment.
And how is that going?
I think it's going very well. I happen to know that one of our staff doing that is meeting with a stakeholder in Mid-Division East Portland this morning. So we're keeping constant contact.
Excellent. And how about the city of Gresham? Are things going well there?
Yes.
I know some people out there, so if you ever need me to, I know somebody that lives there.
Absolutely.
We can help out. Thank you.
Ellen, are all these dots stops?
Yes. They're stations.
How long will it take to get from one point to the end point?
It depends on the time of day, so I can't tell you a time off the top of my head. It's 15% faster or better than the current service.
It's 15%. It's nothing, okay? It's not better than the current service. 15% doesn't count. Like I said, unless it's 100% better or not, it's not worth it. So this has nothing to do with time, with making the rider's time more, important here.
So everybody along the alignment will see an improvement and see more improvement the longer their trip is.
Okay.
Dr. Prosser, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm curious, as you're having to work these out, and particularly as you've indicated, we're removing some of the stations that were originally conceived of for the project. How are you working with the stakeholders on those, and what's been their reaction?
Varied. Obviously there's concern with access to stations anywhere along the alignment. What happens is we end up working through kind of detail by detail, because at the conceptual level the LPA made sense.
Yeah.
When we actually get into the details, that's what it takes. That's why we have to have these constant meetings with folks to help them understand what it is we're dealing with. The people who are closest to those station moves that we're able to work with really understand it. The activists who are looking out for the needs of the entire community still need to make sure that they're comfortable with those changes, and we're in the middle of that conversation. So there's still
kind of the
yeah.
No.
I haven't heard Opal talk about this project. Maybe I haven't seen it. There were a couple testimonies at the board from people, associations of tenants or something along that line that were against this. Like I say, I don't see how this benefits anybody that's living there. It's It's not going to change your commute time, so that what's the point if you can't get a quicker ride? I mean, shit, why don't they just run? See, this is another example. They could just run 8-minute service 24 hours a day, and that line would be stupendous, okay? You have now turned that line into an actual transit corridor. You don't have to run it every 8 minutes at midnight, but I mean every half hour, after 10 or something. Just those consistent service. That's how it would be a beneficial transit project, but no. It's a capital project, which means it does nothing except funnel money, your tax dollars, into the hands of the people controlling this system right now. And it's these capital projects people.
Conclusion yet, in terms of
Right.
community reaction?
Certainly still concern from the broad spectrum of are we providing enough access. I think support from the local, oh yeah, okay, I understand why you made this change.
Yeah, okay.
So I have a question, or maybe just throwing out a concern. I keep seeing the letters from neighborhoods and others about making sure we purchase electric vehicles for this project. I'm kind of worried about the technology being there. Do you have any comments on that, either of you, in terms of how that's going, or what the...
Well, that's a good comment. I mean, if they're going to do it, and they're going to do it, okay, there's no doubt they're going to do it. So they got to do this properly, okay, and not mess it up. Okay, and I don't know, this is not the same kind of project Trimet's used to. They do light rail. Okay, now all of a sudden they're going to be dealing with the streets and buses, and this has got to do with property redevelopment. That's what this really is. It's not really a transit project at all. And that's why I have a problem with it. It's not really a transit project because you're not going to speed up anything. There's no benefit to riders for this project. They would only benefit if they had real frequent, like every 8 minutes. So the service ran all the time. This is not going to benefit riders.
Expectations versus the reality is?
So I agree. We are getting a number of comments from neighborhoods, and frankly, it would be a really desirable thing, I think, in this very heavy congested corridor to have electric technology. So I think we're well disposed to consider it. I've recently met with a group a nonprofit that we've associated ourselves. CTE is their initial.
So His Highness said he's willing to consider electric buses. In other words, that's not the plan. The plan is not for electric buses.
And they deal with the advancement of new technology into the marketplace. And one of the areas that they tend to focus is on the adoption of electric technology by public transit operators right now. And they're working with a number of properties, including us, with our 5-bus electric prototype project that we have underway. So what I intend to do is actually ask them to do an independent assessment about whether or not electric technology is right for this corridor, what it would mean in terms of sort of pushing the marketplace, and really see where we are right now. I would say, as we speak, there's not a product that really fits the bill. The articulated bus with electric technology that's been tested and proven, at least for a year or so, on the road someplace else. Now the market's evolving quickly. Battery capacity and storage are evolving quickly. So these are all things that we're not experts in, which is why I think some outside expertise is really called for to make sure this is a really good decision. Decision will need to be made first quarter of 2018 to get an order in place for the timeline that Alan showed you on his overall time chart. So that's when we'll be investigating. There's also issues about what does the garage look like? What does on-route charging look like? What's the mix between the two? So there's a lot of also the spec of the bus with specific battery capacity that meets the requirements of this line. So these are all issues that I think...
in other words, forget electric buses. We're not going to have them.
Again, we'll get a much more full technical assessment of. But I think where I am right now is I think where you were, Mr. Board President, which is it would really push the technology pretty pretty far, but I want to get an independent assessment of that before we make any final call on that.
Yeah, I just want to be totally forthcoming with folks in terms of where we are and what we're doing. I think your plan of attack is a good one. Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, sort of like the board emphasized about the hop pass, and that we want to
Independent review of that,
yeah, and give it a lot of time, and so we feel comfortable with the system for our customers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
Thanks, Alan.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Maybe just a quick update on the Hop Fast Pass. We are, as you know, ramping up with beta tests. We now have 5,000 beta testers on the system. Their response has been very positive. The number of calls to our call center has been less than we expected. That said, we know that when you have a beta tester, you probably have somebody who's really interested in the technology, so they might be a little more savvy than me, for example. But we now expect that we will begin to see the product distributed to the retail outlet starting July 1st. Our real sort of focus launch will really be July 17th to have some time for that sort of stocking of the passes at retail locations, and then we'll begin a much broader communication and marketing effort associated with the transition. And so we'll see. Our goal again is by next March we'll have over 500 retail locations in place, and we'll be ramping up to that over between now and September. We'll get most of the way there, and then there's a final sort of push to get into some particular stores and some particular electronic systems that will require us to wait till March on those. But so far so good. So again, that's a very big initiative on our part. We know that this is a long haul proposition, so this is just the beginning. We want to be off to a smart start. I might just note on another matter, your next July meeting will be...
Yeah, I guess this electronic fear of tap card was inevitable. I guess everybody else has it, so I don't know. It just seems to me like it's another useless capital project. You know, they have passes, they have cell phone apps. You got to keep the cash, okay? You got to keep the cash option. And my understanding is that this eventually will phase out cash. This is the whole intent of these networks. They're trying to phase out cash. I mean, that's really true, okay? You have to look into that for yourself, but that's a whole nother argument. But I mean, the overall oligarchs are trying to create a cashless society, and that's a very serious problem if they actually succeed in doing it. I mean, we're already in trouble as it is, but if they actually succeed in making us all put our lives out without cash, they can trace everything you can do forever.
At the Beaverton building, right at the Beaverton Central stop, not Beaverton Transit Center, Beaverton Central stop. And again, they've hosted us before. We'll start with a reception at the outset of the meeting, or before the meeting, and then so certain committee members can join you there, and then we'll have our regular business meeting, and then a finance and audit following that. I'd also note that as we look through the year, we will be back here at the Portland building for August and September and October. In October, you will say goodbye to this meeting space because we'll be leaving with a retreat that will be up at the Oregon Zoo in November, and by December, we're pretty sure this will be under remodel at that point in time, and will be dislodged. So then beginning next year, we'll be in a number of different locations. We have a general base or a home base launched, which is the Plaza level conference at the World Trade Center that you were at last month. So that'll be our home base, but we'll have a number of other meeting locations around the region. And a couple times a year also we'll get back to Center Street for where the training rooms are. So just to note that we're going to be adjusting ourselves to no Portland building here in the near future.
Good.
With that,
I don't know how many years ago, we went out to Clackamas College and had a board meeting.
Yes.
I think it's something we should look at, or someplace out on the east side.
East side's good.
We got this division going
Yep.
on, and we want to hear about the Orange Line.
Yep.
With the,
We'll continue to scour we have been out to,
Look, there's very little point in moving these meetings around the service area because they have them during the weekday, 9 o'clock, okay? That's the worst possible time to have a meeting, is weekdays at 9 a.m. So no matter what they do, hardly anybody's going to show up. And that's the intent. That's why they have them on weekdays at 9 a.m. and on Wednesdays, right plunk in the middle of the week.
Gresham City Hall a number of times. I know we'll return there before very long. And of course, we've been at Ride Connection a number of times, so those are good east side locations that we can find.
okay.
Any other questions for the board?
You know, this is our first board meeting since, of course, the tragic events at the Hollywood Mac Center. So it's been it's emotional for all of us, and I hope we'll hear about a permanent memorial there.
Yes, and maybe I could give you just a very quick update on that, on where we are with that. We are, of course, beginning the formation of a group that will consider the memorial. We're partnering with the City of Portland and working very closely with them. We've had initial outreach to the families involved. My assessment is right now it's a little too early to really get them involved in a thoughtful way, though we've gotten initial reactions and thoughts.
You notice how the Trimet executives never really brought this up at all during the board meeting. Didn't bring it up at all. It's like, oh, we won't talk about this.
So what we will be doing is really following what's become our more traditional public art program, but with a different twist, of course, where we have stakeholders, community members, people who are quite expert in thinking about the visual arts and memorials, as well as the families and other interests represented, including the Muslim community. So we're attempting a very inclusive process, and Michelle Traver from our staff is really leading that process right now, and we'll expect to sort of advance that over the next couple of months. A good memorial will take some time. I think we all want it to be good. We want it to be meaningful and thoughtful, and to a large extent reflect the sentiments that are there at that impromptu memorial that's grown up around the Hollywood Transit Center. And so we'll keep you posted on that. But again, I think some good formative work has been underway, and you will see more concrete steps, not necessarily concrete, but concrete steps toward the memorial in the next couple of months.
Good.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Appreciate it. And
Thank you.
Thank you again to the staff.
Thank you all.
For being well prepared.
All right, well, I actually got through the entire board meeting, and I actually enjoyed watching it because I'm able to make this little video while I'm doing it, so it makes it watchable for me. Because even if I have no influence, you know, I can pretend I do because I'm watching them and thinking about the topic. And, you know, I want to point out here that Trimet is expanding at a very rapid rate. I don't know if people realize that the hegemon is growing. I mean, they just got a payroll, their existing payroll tax, they just got an increase in that. And they just issued over $100 million in bonds. And now they're getting the $70 million from the state, which they say is $40 million. So, I mean, there's a lot of money going through there. And you'll never know what they're going to do with it because they're not going to discuss it with you. You know, all that money is being spent to the proper people that it's supposed to go to, and they'll never talk about who. And that's the dirty little secret that's going on here that they don't talk about. You know, the more you know, the more you don't want to know, because the scam just gets clearer and clearer and clearer.